Having a devil fruit is nice and all, and it's nice to have superpowers, but sometimes the drawbacks can be kind of annoying considering that most of your adventures are about sailing the oceans. I mean, you're going to be spending a lot of time on the water, and the fact that you can't swim, could be a real nuisance. But wouldn't it sure come in handy to have a powerful crew member that specializes in swimming and in the water? Jinbei. He's easily top 4 powerhouses in the Straw Hat Pirate crew, probably just slightly behind characters like Sanji. But one thing that he specialized more than everybody else on the crew is water-based combat. I mean, he's one of those few people that can use interesting techniques and still swim in the water. Because here's the thing, in the world of One Piece, there's a lot of different type of races in this world. Some characters or some beings are born with genetic advantages. Like being born a giant, you obviously have a strength advantage because you're born bigger than everybody else, usually. One can say this same concept goes for Fishman-like beings that exist in this world. This is where Jinbei comes in. He is this species. Like, it's even stated in the show that they have 10 times the strength of humans. Fishmen are strong. Just like other fishmen, like this isn't Jinbei right here, but he has a genetic advantage when it comes to fighting somebody underwater. Even superhuman beings like Sanji, who are ridiculously strong, have a disadvantage underwater, saying their attacks have half the strength they usually would on land. But in water, fishmen actually got an advantage. Matter of fact, their power moves are even multiplied. Stuff like this should apply for Jinbei automatically. He's the Aquaman of the group. When he was in Neptune's army, you can literally see him use a freaking trident. Look familiar? Let's just say he's an exceptionally strong fisherman. Even other fishermen, even though they're stronger than normal humans by default because of their genetics, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be on Jinbei's level, because Jinbei even talks about how other fishermen, when it comes to fisherman karate, they're like children compared to him. I mean, it's pretty obvious he's strong. Look at the size of him compared to normal sized people like Sanji and Luffy. Like, even though he's bigger than normal humans, this still doesn't give you a real understanding of his true might. He's actually strong on what he looks. And being a fisherman, it makes sense that he can communicate with fish and sharks, you know? Like, he's really helpful on the team. He can literally call for creature type backup. Even says he called them, you know? This comes in handy having a fisherman on the group that can do this to call for backups, so it can help you get away. I mean, these things aren't normal size. Look how large they are compared to normal sized humans like Luffy. Oh man, I wouldn't want to fight a fisherman crew on the actual ocean. Oh, wait a minute. There was actually a full-blown fisherman crew known as the Sun Pirates. And Jinbei was the second in command. It proved where he was in the hierarchy because when Fish the Tiger was gone, he became the leader or captain. Bounties are a big thing in this universe. You can kind of get an idea of a character's power level or fighting ability based on their bounty the government gives them. Let's just say Jinbei isn't the youngest person of the group. He's been doing this for a while. And a fair assumption would be, which is not far-fetched, most characters get stronger via time going by. Off screen, we could assume Jinbei has gotten strong over the years as time went by, along with his adventures with the Straw Hats. You can kind of tell by the younger images you see of him and how he's always been fighting. You can see him gradually aging. So he's somebody wise to have on the crew with Luffy. As far as how he fights, based on his fighting style, it's known as the Fishman karate. It is basically controlling the water in your direct vicinity, even if we're talking about like the atmosphere. So it doesn't, like, he can kind of pretty much hit anybody. This is kind of helpful against devil fruit users when it comes to being able to use water around the area. That's why he can punch with shockwaves through them. Like this, for example. It comes in handy when it comes to hitting multiple people without necessarily having to touch them all at the same time. Let's just say he has hydrokinesis. Like if he's underwater, he can do all kinds of water-based techniques that have a lot of concussive force behind them, and you're at a disadvantage. He can blast and spam water bullets at you. So flame people, beware. It's stuff like this is why he can hit so hard. Part of this is helpful on why he can punch so hard, because he can put water around his fist to increase his striking power in hidden techniques, even when he's on dry land, to punch you with like a super drill type technique. I haven't really went over how much he can lift or his just raw muscle strength really, but yeah, part of this is the reason why he can punch so hard. On top of the fact he knows one of the legendary techniques in his universe, this mysterious power known as Haki. This is pretty much the technique that determines if you're a powerhouse in this universe, really, because you see how his hands look like his skin color. They do this for animation purposes, but when they're using this mysterious power known as Haki, it's technically invisible armor. They animate it for us, but yeah, Jinbei can do it, as you can see here, putting invisible armor around his body to increase his punching power, like, or even durability. Like it's explained here that Haki is an inner energy that technically everybody has. Not everybody trains themselves to be able to use this, though. Jinbei just happens to be one of those people that can. So if somehow his Fishman karate doesn't work and he's fighting somebody that's literally made of light or something, like there's beings that are literally made of intangible stuff in this universe because of overpowered devil fruits. These Haki techniques is the reason why you can still hit beings that have fluid bodies. That's why Jinbei having this is kind of crucial. Otherwise, you would have no way to touch somebody that's actually made of light. Like how else would you hit them? You know, this is why Jinbei is able to beat beings that are loggy like this, because of Haki. And this right here proves they don't always animate Haki. Like, you know, I always say this invisible armor. Sometimes they decide to animate it, sometimes they don't, you know. This game right here explains it best. It's not something you can spam, But yeah, you can definitely use it a lot, and it can increase your durability, make it used for defense, or put it around your fist to make your fist more potent to increase your striking power. We've literally seen Jinbei make his whole body extra durable because of Haki, so it shows that there's different levels of Haki too, because just because a character uses Haki, that doesn't mean your Haki will match up to his. You can actually break your own finger with colliding with Jinbei's Haki, for example. So let you know Jinbei's pretty good with Haki when it comes to amplifying his durability and such. He's an abnormally large being compared to normal humans, so you know his muscles are abnormally strong. That's why his punches are so hard, and a part of that is because of Haki. All of these things together is why he can hit so hard. It's because of this Haki, he's able to do crazy stuff like shield from a piercing type damage, like swords. Can't just easily cut through him like butter because of this Haki. He can harden his durability. That's the reason. Haki allows you to sense beings as spiritual presence and stuff like that, and he has super senses. He can sense other beings as Haki. In comparison to other fishmen, you can kind of get an idea of his strength right off bat. Just compare him to other fishmen that are strong. Like Arlong, for the most part, he's always been really above Arlong. Like Jinbei proved that pretty much. Narratively, anything Arlong can lift, I don't see no reason why Jinbei can't. You know, this can just give you a small idea of their strength. I mean, Jinbei should be able to do this by default. Arlong can literally lift houses and flip them upside down. So when you see Jinbei do stuff like swimming with literally beings on his back while carrying this thick gate, part of this is probably fighting skills, but he's constantly slamming or throwing beings that are kind of larger than himself. Like, look at the size difference. He even calls it Fishman Jiu-Jitsu. He even labels this. This guy literally slammed Big Mom. Somebody that's this large compared to ordinary sized humans. Like, look how large she looks. Jinbei is bigger than normal humans, but he's still smaller than her. He lifted her up and swung her. Not saying he's on her level, but this is still crazy. You know, the captain of the group. I'm not saying Jinbei is equal to, like, you know, the main character, of course, but there was a time where I would say he was definitely stronger muscle-wise than the main character, Luffy, before the big time skip. The reason why I think this when it comes to who can lift more or just strength in general, because a fair comparison is this opponent that we've seen Luffy fight, Gecko Moria. Luffy had a real hard time. Like, the whole Straw Hat crew had to fight this guy during this time period before the time skip, of course. Jinbei quite literally treats this guy as like a one-shot joke. During this time period, this guy Gecko Moria was giving the Straw Hats major issues. Multiple powerhouses were struggling against him. So it kind of lets you know where Jinbei stood during this time frame. Jinbei treating him like a lightweight. Like, I noticed his punching power, but I think it's related to his strength too. His punching power is strong because he's physically strong too, and mixture of his Haki and Fishman karate. Like, all that stuff put together. That's why I think he can do similar stuff to what Luffy can do in strength. And Luffy can move thousands of tons. I think Jinbei could do this too during this time period, during Luffy's weaker days, if Jinbei was in this same situation. Don't you believe he could do this too, push these buildings apart? When Luffy was having a mental breakdown, Luffy was having some serious issues overpowering Jinbei. So it lets you know how strong physically when it comes to muscle Jinbei is, knowing that he can push apart buildings, you know, move 100,000 or more tons. That seems like standard One Piece strength stuff, like, honestly. Like, Luffy was pissed off here, so Jinbei has to be in that level because, like, look how pissed he was. This is the same Luffy that can literally move buildings with his raw strength. So Jinbei has to be able to do that. So you could literally put the weight of a building on his back and he would be able to lift it up with his muscle, you know? But if you don't believe this, you know, the farther this video goes, you're probably going to start believing it. Trust me. I got more examples of him fighting beings that Luffy couldn't beat or vice versa. Like fighting Luffy's brother Ace for 5 freaking days. Somebody who during this time period was actually physically stronger than Luffy. It's not just his devil fruit, but he was physically stronger than Luffy. This kind of stuff implies that whatever Luffy can do during this time period, Jinbei, when it comes to muscle, can do better, because Ace is just strong without no devil fruit, even as a kid. Matter of fact, Luffy even says, "I'll be better than you someday," implying that he's not better than him at this moment. You see? That's why it's implied that Jinbei can do whatever Luffy can do during this time period. Like, it's little stuff like this that imply he can definitely lift up buildings or push them apart, similar to what Luffy can. I mean, in Wano arc, this ceiling was literally collapsing and he was strong enough to hold it up. This is a good example of that. This is just straight muscle. Like I said, like, he's just strong with muscle. Massive weapons, you see him stop with his hands. You know, his muscles is crazy. I mean, when it comes to ships, especially if he's underwater, he can definitely do these superhuman things. With his raw strength, it's implied he can literally move this ship back and help them out. You know, this is superhuman strength. All this stuff I've shown you, this is just a glimpse. You know he got to hit hard, or his punches got to be crazy. Punches or blasts with water and stuff via Fishman karate. It's the same concept where I already showed you how much he can lift. His blasts, his punches can do the same, because even extremely large building-sized beings that try to punch him, he can stop it with his kicks. So it lets you know size doesn't really matter. Just because you're bigger doesn't automatically mean you're stronger. He's way stronger, what his size would suggest. We're talking about a being that's 260 feet tall. Like, you can check the official One Piece stats. Yeah, that's his official height, 260 feet. Like, we're talking about beings that are as big as ships. I mean, look how big he is compared to the Kraken, which is something that's comparable to the size of ships or even larger than ships. You see what I mean? Like, these beings are large, but Jinbei can hit so hard despite this massive size and make this being hurt his hand. So this, like they even said, how can he counter an attack from such a gigantic enemy? Like, look how small the main characters look compared to this being, y'all. There's even spectators that say he's 1,000,000 times his size, but Jinbei doesn't care. With his blast power mixed with his punching power via Fishman karate. Look how small Jinbei looks. You can't even see him in this angle. That's how small he looks. He punches this being. This how it looks animated. Literally launching this being. It's pretty clear he could easily tremble or destroy buildings with his punching power. Like, that's pretty obvious. This is low end stuff in One Piece universe. I mean, why do you think he's able to use spear water attacks while in the water to blast through an entire ship? So blast power or punching power. I think if you can level certain battleships in One Piece, certain buildings would easily fall in his path. You know, it's these structures you see on ships, these wooden structures. He can punch through it, punch beings through it. You can tell his hits have weight to it. Look how he's pushing Luffy against the rocks. I brought this up already, but I'm bringing it up again. To get a good understanding of Jinbei is that even before the big time skip, he was technically stronger than Luffy by default, because Luffy talks about how strong Ace was. Even without his devil fruit, he still couldn't beat him. They were monsters just in strength. They're just monstrous humans in strength. Originally, this fight with Ace was only completely off screen, but we eventually did get to kind of see some on screen of how Ace had to literally blast him, and Jinbei had to counter it with his water. It was like water versus fire, basically. Ace confirmed to actually have Haki, so Jinbei doing this is impressive. Even he was asking, where's all this water coming from? There's water all around us, from the air, from beneath the earth. There's water even inside your body. This is the famous 5-day fight, so it lets you know that, yeah, he can literally fight Ace this long. You can fight somebody for 5 days, y'all pretty evenly matched. I mean, you look at the blast power Ace got, all these ships lined up, he can just blast all of them apart. Him battling Ace like this, I would say his strikes would have to be able to tremble mountains themselves easily, right? Because Ace can produce blasts that are dang near close to the size of an entire island. Like, look how large of these explosions Ace can produce. Like, this type of stuff that Jinbei got to compete against, or he had to compete against for 5 days. These panels really show that these two are on the same tier, clashing this hard with each other. Ace is a being that has taken on vice admirals before. You know, there's different ranks in the Navy depending on your power level. You know, like, there's all kind of ranks. Like, the beings that are the highest are considered the highest ranked fighters. So, you know, it lets you know that the fighting does have something to do with their rank. This can kind of give you an idea of where Jinbei and Ace are, just as a bare minimum being disrespectful. Like, beings way down here in this rank when it comes to how hard they can punch, we can assume that Ace and Jinbei can punch harder than beings in this tier. One could say beings that are aspiring to be up here, these beings can punch mountain-sized constructs or even hurt beings really badly that are literally island men, like men made of islands, and punch mountain stuff into smithereens. So yeah, these beings easily are like nuclear bombs, literally walking buster calls. But I want to keep note that Kobe is an exceptionally strong captain. Kobe's probably stronger than captain rank, but I still think the concept still applies, because like vice admirals like this called Jinbei's strength mythic. So even like the vice admirals kind of respect him. It kind of adds up with the Ace stuff about Ace taking on vice admiral. So yeah, it's pretty evident his strikes can hit with enough force to shake a city to its very core. It makes sense. After the big time skip, he does a jet stomp and he's able to block these attacks. Jinbei even mentions this is what your training you have achieved. Even Jinbei mentions this is all the training got you. Luffy is astronomically strong for his size because he can one punch beings that are larger than Jinbei in one hit. So for Jinbei to take hits like this, lets you know Jinbei's way stronger than beings this large. And don't forget, Luffy can literally punch out mountain men, literally. As you can see, like beings literally as big as mountains. Like, he can mess up these beings' heads. I mean, for Pete's sake, when it comes to Jinbei, his bounty, you know, in One Piece, bounty does have something to do with your combat ability set. Here, you can kind of get an idea of Jinbei's power level based on what his current bounty is. Like, okay, in previous arcs, don't forget that beings with bounties close to this level gave Luffy, the main character of a previous arc, a run for the money. So it just kind of lets you know how strong Jinbei is. Could he take on Katakuri one-on-one now? Oh. Matter of fact, when it comes to this being Katakuri, when he was getting ready to strike Luffy, Jinbei is the one that intercepts it with his strike. Just a friendly reminder that beings that don't have bounties this high when it comes to how hard they can hit hard enough to split ice continents, just to give you some perspective. There's this being known as Who's Who has a decent bounty. To give you an idea of his strength, You guys remember this organization that had these absurd martial arts styles, fighting abilities that allow you to jump on air and stuff? Like this CP9 organization. What if I told you there was a being that used to be a part of this? This being's name was Who's Who. This is years ago when he was a part of CP9. One of the strongest beings of the CP9 organization. He was considered a bright prospect similar to or comparable to the famous being known as Rob Lucci. You know Rob Lucci is the same guy back in the day, the same being that dang near pushed Luffy to the limit. Like, this was a hard fought battle. Like, I'm not saying this guy's currently as strong as the current Lucci. You know, Lucci has improved over years too, but Jinbei had to fight a being that has similar techniques, almost like a identical fighting style. It's almost like symbolic on how close or similar he fights to Lucci. Not only can his Haki overwhelm him, his body or fingers break on his skin. And Jinbei gets the advantage over a powerful foe like this. Oh, did I forget to mention that he's actually gotten an occasion with Rob Lucci and punched him back here? It should also be noted when it comes to Jinbei's speed, he's faster than you think. Because, you know, CP9 agents can pretty much vanish before eyesight with their speed. Jinbei has no problem combating beings this fast. Matter of fact, it's even stated about his speed, talking about how he's surprised on how Jinbei can move quickly on land. During this point in the series, Luffy can easily react to light stuff, light speed attacks. So beings that can use this technique has to be somewhere in that range to even be a threat to Jinbei or Luffy. Because in regards to fighting speed, Luffy just can't outright blitz Jinbei, punching Jinbei. And considering this is the same Luffy that calls laser beams slow, like I'm talking about beams of actual light, and Jinbei can't just get blitzed by beings this quick. So even to be able to compete with the top tier Straw Hats, you have to be pretty much dang near close to light speed to even be a threat for them back in the day like this. To even be a threat for them currently, Who's Who should probably be in this range, somewhere in that range. So just imagine all this stuff I've showed you in this video so far, but imagine Jinbei punching you at these kind of dang near close to light speed. Ain't that crazy? This stuff starting to make more sense now yet? So I would say anything captains down here can do, I would say Jinbei can do, because beings like vice admirals are giving him respect. Matter of fact, there's even beings in higher ranks, the ultimate rank, admiral themselves giving Jinbei, acknowledging Jinbei's strength in the highest rank. If you know anything about One Piece, you know there's certain characters that don't hold back and they literally try to murder. So some of these feats are ridiculously insane. Even if I'm not necessarily saying he's equal to admiral level, there's respect from vice admirals, multiple beings acknowledging Jinbei's power, fighting Ace for multiple days. A lot of this stuff just implies that he's ridiculously heavy in this verse, because there's admirals out here that can literally clash with Whitebeard. Not saying they're equal to Whitebeard either, but they're strong enough to where they don't get one shot at like Vice Admiral. So there's a big gap between Vice Admiral and Admiral, guys. Let me give you an example. Whitebeard can one punch Vice Admirals like this, guys, and treat them like a joke. So you're probably thinking, oh man, Jinbei, he would get one shot like this too. I'm not gonna lie, Jinbei probably would get messed up by Whitebeard pretty easily too, but the fact that Whitebeard can punch his beings like Akainu this much, Whitebeard punched Akainu so hard, he was oozing blood. And he did get defeated, but guys, considering how easy he messes up Vice Admirals, this guy kind of got messed up and still had enough energy to continue fighting in the same war. He didn't stay knocked out. So there's an astronomical gap between Vice Admiral and Admiral. This is important for Jinbei because we all know this guy was trying to kill. So it's not like he was holding back. This guy was trying to kill. This might be one of Jinbei's best feats of all time. He literally kind of held off these attacks for a little bit. He did get overpowered. I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. Knowing that Akainu was trying to kill them, the fact that he was able to hold this off is insane. You could argue he's in the sweet spot between Vice Admiral and Admiral. Not quite Admiral level, but definitely above most Vice Admirals for most of the part. There's a lot of ways you can look at this. You can look at this as that he was able to block attacks from Akainu as a Haki feat. It could be a mixture of his strength and Haki. It could be his water helping nullify the heat of the Akainu's magma. It's a lot of ways you can look at it, but let's be honest. This is ridiculous durability. He got blasted a hole through but didn't die. This is not the first time we've seen Jinbei clash with a top tier of the version. Like, you know how Admirals and Yonkos, you know, the Emperors of the Sea, the strongest pirates in the world, they're called Emperor of the Sea. Like, yeah, Jinbei is definitely weaker than Emperors of the Sea, but he's got some interesting occasions clashing with some of these beings. Like, yes, she's absurdly strong, and despite knowing that she's stronger than him, you know, she got like a Haxi fruit that can take your lifespan away, but it won't work if you're not scared. This proves that Jinbei is not scared of her in the slightest, despite him knowing how powerful she is. That lets you know his resolve. Everybody's saying impossible. Not to mention, I guess you can't take this too seriously because Big Mama was nerfed, because Big Mama was in a starving state. You know, she was hungry. Jinbei was able to block an attack from Big Mama. She did eventually push him back, but her children was like, what? Keep in mind that Yonkos like Big Mama can strike with other Yonkos. And via their Haki clash and Conqueror's Haki coding and stuff, they can split the sky. Like, this is the type of stuff that Jinbei is blocking. Was she using Conqueror's Haki coding or infusion against Jinbei? Who knows? Probably not, but Jinbei still blocked her attack for a little while. He still got pushed back though, so this is still impressive for Jinbei. It's really hard to measure him when it comes to comparing him to admirals and yonkos because he's not quite there yet, but he seems to be above your majority of your vice admirals too. So it's kind of hard to rank. If we was to place him in our real world when it comes to how hard his hits would feel, a good argument can be made based on all the stuff we've seen. We know yonkos can split the sky and stuff, which takes a lot more force than just leveling islands and such. There's implications he could cause damage to a smaller country or something based on stuff like that. Or at least the weight of his hits will feel something like worse than an explosion that would devastate a small country or something like that. Look, I know Big Mom was weak in here, guys, but for Jinbei to punch her and send her flying, there's no way he's a lightweight. I mean, Jinbei got a bounty higher than somebody like Enel with his lightning, somebody that can blast countrywide explosion type stuff. Like, look, beings that are on the earth watching the moon, see an explosion, like they say, moon explodes. Jinbei has a bigger bounty than beings that can produce blasts like this. I'm just saying, like, sink that in. Like, you know how planetoids vary in size. You know the moon's not as big as Earth, but an explosion this large would definitely be bigger than certain countries, if we're being honest, or even continent size stuff. It makes you wonder about Jinbei's strikes and Haki and stuff. You can theorize, since Jinbei has a higher bounty than such a being, that if he shot a blast with the raw power to cause a dang near close to moon-sized explosion, Jinbei's Haki would be able to blast it away. Be honest, an explosion that can be seen on the moon from Earth this far away has to be on some bigger than a lot of countries or bigger than certain continent-sized type of explosions. You know what I mean? Even narrated, the moon explodes. This would just kind of make Jinbei look more impressive if you believe Jinbei's Haki would be able to overwhelm or overpower blasts that powerful based on his Haki and stuff. That would basically imply that Jinbei's hits would feel worse than a continental-sized explosion or an explosion bigger than multiple countries or something. You know, that would make Jinbei sound more impressive, wouldn't it? I mean, Jinbei's a force to be reckoned with. I mean, he was a part of the Big Mom Pirates for a bit. You know, that super powerful emperor that has a lot of different strong fighters on the squad. Big Mama herself stated that Jinbei leaving would be like losing a lot of raw power. So it lets you know, even though she knows she's way above him, he's a heavy hitter. Jinbei has proved himself. Is Jinbei strong or what, guys? But what do you guys think? Am I tripping? Jinbei believes if you don't hit that like button, Jinbei would hit you with a brick fist right quick. Seriously, guys, hit that like button. It would really help out a lot. Respect Jinbei, the Knight of the Sea. And thanks for the donations, everybody. Yeah, Jinbei's kind of crazy. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.